audience in Lupe. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand. Lupe will pick it.
Jim? If elected president, what would your first act be?
Okay, now, Bill, you'll start and you'll have 2 minutes for this question.
I've already given the first 3 things I do on day 1, which happened to be my 65th birthday. I'd eliminate the ability of the federal government to borrow. I'd eliminate the banks. I'd eliminate the ability of the banks to control the quantity of the national money. That's a good start. I'd also appoint a special prosecutor to go after the previous fraud. I'm thinking of Bill Black in particular, who you all may have seen some of the stuff on YouTube. I believe he was a special prosecutor for the SNL mess, and he won't take any prisoners.
Any question?
Well, after I recovered from the shock of actually being elected president of the United States of America, and I plan to be fairly busy, my first act is stop killing people. We don't teach anybody it's wrong to kill people by killing people. We don't teach people it's wrong to bomb them by bombing them. I intend to announce to the world, within seconds after taking my hand off the bomb, that the United States has a new and simple foreign policy that consists of 5 words. We are not at war.
Well, the question didn't say if that was after inauguration or after on election night. Not likely. I think if the media came to me and said, now that you're declared the winner, what's your first act? I said, well, first of all, I think I'll go have a big stiff drink. Second one is I'm going to decide whether to demand a recount or not. That's an awesome thought. One of the first things I'd like to do is get myself a rubber stamp about that big with a 4-letter word on it. V-E-T-O. Veto. And I want to become known as the Veto King. And I would tell the military, start bringing all our troops back to the soils of the United States of America and close down these. Man, what I read said it costs $1 million a day to keep a troop stationed in these war areas. Bring them home and give them 1 day of that cost per person in their discharge and tell them to go out there and be productive.
Well, I don't think that we should be surprised if the descendants of the founders of this republic ask one of our champions or our party to restore their freedom and liberty. So we should be prepared for that. But as to what I would do on my very first day, I would issue an emancipation proclamation to all those who have had their liberty and their property infringed and stolen from them by the U.S. government in this civil war on drugs. Every single one of them that have had their families ripped apart, their property taken, and had their lives ruined by this war. And included in that would be an emancipation proclamation issued for those that have also been imprisoned and prosecuted for nothing more than keeping and bearing their arms, as is protected by the Second Amendment of the Constitution. And right along with that, I agree with what my colleague Lee said about ending the foreign interventionism. And that would also be what happens with me on day 1. That I would be moving to end the foreign policy of foreign interventionism, to remove our Army and Air Forces from other nations around the world, from involving ourselves in regional conflict, and to immediately begin a new foreign policy of defending this republic, defending our borders, and not trying to be the policeman of the world.
You give me a job.
I have 2 things I'd like to do. Number 1, I would grant a pardon for everyone who is in jail for a victimless crime. and have it be known that for every conviction thereafter of any victimless crime, nonviolent, that I will grant a pardon for that. And that would undoubtedly create a constitutional crisis of some sort. But we could have the president at least stopping all imprisonment for federal victimless crimes. And secondly, I would implement the first three are free by a simple change of the IRS regulation to define the independent contractor to include the first three employees of any business. That will create millions of jobs in no time. Those two things I would do.
May I give a response? You said there would be a
30-second period.
With all due respect, you guys don't get it. The number one issue on the minds of the American people is the economic issue. We are moving into an economic black hole that just hasn't completely manifested itself yet. If this party doesn't stand for that as its number one issue, we're not going to get the 10% that we so earnestly desire. And I forgot to say one other thing about what I do. The third thing is to abolish the IRS on day one.
We still have a 30-second rebuttal to be used at any time except for during this next round. The next round is the lightning round, and as I explained, I will ask a question, and I have 6 questions. They are simple yes or no answers. And you can say maybe, you can say I don't know, you can say I'm not sure, but please don't elaborate, because I want to get through all 6 questions. And again, we will rotate. I will start this first question with you, Lee, and then we'll rotate through, and then you will answer the last one because 6 questions. Are you all ready? Okay. When I call your name, you say yes, no, or... number 1, taxes. Do you support...
No. I'm sorry, I thought that was a question.
Let me get the question out. Do you support the fair tax, a national sales tax, as a substitute for the income tax?
No such thing as a fair tax, no.
Roger.
Ditto, big time. That's absolutely right. No such thing as a fair tax.
No.
Probably.
Okay. Number 2, states' rights. Do states have the right to nullify what they deem to be unconstitutional laws? Roger.
Cameron.
Yes.
Carl.
I can't say right now. It's a legal issue.
I don't know.
And
They have the power, do not have the right.
number 3, the war on drugs. And one who's already answered this, but we're going to do it anyway. Would you pardon or commute the sentences for non-violent drug offenders currently in federal prison? RJ.
Yes.
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 Lee.
We start with it. Yes.
Yes.
There you go. And on to immigration. Carl, do you favor amnesty for undocumented aliens or immigrants who are working in this country?
I haven't come to a conclusion.
No.
Lee.
You can't answer this yes or no without an explanation. I will say no, and I hope I get a chance to explain to you why I say no.
Okay. And Roger.
Well, agreeing with him that it's a very difficult to answer without explanation, but yes.
Could you repeat the question?
Do you favor amnesty for undocumented aliens or immigrants working in this country? Should be living in this country.
Favor amnesty.
Yes, amnesty.
Well, like my colleagues here, I totally don't agree that that's a yes or no question, but I'm sorry, I can't answer that yes or no. I'm going to have to say, but I do favor a path to citizenship for the citizens that are here, for the immigrants that are here.
Very good.
What he said.
Okay, unions. I believe, Carl, you're next. Oh, Bill, sorry. Would you sign a national right to work law?
I don't know. Probably not.
No, we have a national right to work law, it's called the Constitution.
No.
Or
No.
And in the last one, number 6, back to you, Lee, for wars, and you've all pretty much.
No.
indicated. Would you bring troops home from Afghanistan your first year in office?
My first month.
Roger.
How about the first day?
Jay? Carl?
Yes.
All right. Very good. Well, some of those were harder than the yes, no. Sorry to put you on the spot, and this gives you something to talk with the audience about afterwards. Or you can also rebut this later on. But we're going to go on to the next question, and it's a 70th question. The subject is abortion. And Illinois has on its books a pro-life law passed in 1975, although that law defers to Roe v. Wade. Do you support different states setting their own abortion law? And if you want to, you can talk about your opinion about Roe v. Wade. 75 seconds, and Roger, you're going to.
Oh, thank you. Well, there's so much to that question, and basically, since we're running for president in federal offices, is there any room in federal government to be regulated in? No, I don't think so. Do the states have a right to? I would also tend to say no. It's an elective surgery. Although in certain circumstances you might debate how elective it was, but it is elective. And of course, the basis of the question gets down to is, should the government at any level be paying for an abortion? Well, no, they shouldn't be paying for any medical procedure. So, complicated issue.
Okay. Arjun.
Well, at the time that the 5th and the 14th Amendments were ratified, it wasn't even conceived that a human life would be viable prior to natural birth. However, our founders gave us in Article 5 of the Constitution the ability to deal with constitutional impasses as they arise. And so, since we have a protection for life in the 5th and 14th Amendments, I believe it's what's in order, especially given the very cantankerous national debate that has occurred over the last many decades, is what is needed is a constitutional amendment to give us a definition for that word person in the 5th and 14th Amendments. So it seems just really clear to me that if we have an issue with our current consent to be governed, which is our Constitution, that the solution to that is to use the 5th Amendment to fix whatever that impasse is, and not to try to legislate it with the tyranny of the majority, and not to try to use the tyranny of the judiciary to try to force that onto one half of the body politic or the other. So you know, in summary, I would say that we need a constitutional solution for what I believe is a constitutional issue.
I don't believe we have a constitutional solution other than just abortion should be allowed both federal and state, and we don't need any amendments for that.
I don't see why this is a national issue. I mean, it's clearly it is in tune with 3 of my big basic premises, and that is, number 1, it allows the states to claw back power from the federal government. Number 2, it's in harmony with the separation of powers concept. In other words, the whole thing that makes America free and safe is that power is spread